Hello, welcome to my presentation about white blood cells data from application problem number 1. Now your first big question might be, where did our data come from? Leading to a cluster sampling survey made, we took note of the largest hospital in the area, who also randomly selected 300 patients and anonymously submitted them to our study. After receiving the hospital's anonymous 300 patients white blood cells count, we were able to come up with a lot of information, but with the top 3 being the median, the mode, and the average. Now first we're going to talk about the median. The median is the amount of data that we have listed from least to greatest. 6.2 thousandths per microliter was our middle point between all of our data points. Next, mode. Now, taking a look at our data even closer, we were able to see that 5.6 thousandths per microliter were actually our most common white blood cells count. And lastly, we're going to talk about average. The average of all the patients was 6.5 thousandths per microliter. How I came up with that average was that we took all 300 patients' white blood cells count and we divided it about that amount of patients. Now we're going to take a quick look at our histogram that we have here. If you see, first we have our label of white blood cells count of hospital patients, with our number of patients being 300. The frequency is the amount of patients that are under that category or that bandwidth, the class width that is presented. So if you see, we have quite a bit of peak and then we slowly decline again. Thankfully, we had 2 volunteers who were able and willing to share their white blood cell count test with us. Now let's get to know them a little bit more. First, we have Joseph. Joseph is a husband, but unfortunately at this time he is sick and fighting infection. And then as well as we have his wife, Azeneth. But she also has a little bit of a difference in her body and her normal intake. She's taking immunosuppressants. Now comparing Joseph to our study that we have been able to conduct, we were able to know and look at his current test of white blood cell counts, which is 12.1 thousandths per microliter. Now, according to the rest of our patients that we were able to take a look at, Joseph is actually in the 99.2% percentile, which is actually very significantly high compared to the other patients. This could also be due to his body fighting infection and him being sick. So it's working a little bit harder than a lot of others. However, we have Azeneth on the complete opposite of the scale. Azeneth is currently testing with 5.3 thousandths per microliter, and she is actually in the 25.4 percentile, which is well within the range of our compared 300 patients. There could be many reasons why our patients are currently testing at their white blood cell count, as well as our volunteers. But what we can conclude from our survey is these summary data points. The first being the minimum. Now the minimum is looking at your data points and pinpointing the lowest amount. And in this data, we'll see that 2.7 thousandths per microliter is our minimum, our lowest point. Next is the average, which we already spoke about previously, is 6.5 thousandths per microliter. The median, which is 6.2 thousandths per microliter, and the mode, which is 5.6 thousandths per microliter. Now we're going to talk about 3 more new terms. Quarter 1, which is in between the middle point, the median, and the minimum. That is our quarter 1 sector, which is actually 5.2 thousandths per microliter. Quarter 3, which is actually between the median and the maximum, so the greatest amount of white blood cell count that we were given, is 7.825 thousandths per microliter. And lastly, like I just mentioned, is our maximum, the greatest amount, the biggest and largest amount of white blood cell counts given to us from our 300 patients, which is 14.3.